We're ready.
Okay, well, then I would like to call the regular board meeting of the San Ynez Community Service District to order Wednesday, March 16th at 5:30 p.m. And if we could stand and salute the flag, please. Mike, will you lead us
To the flag.
to the flag of the United States of America?
And to the
To
republic.
the republic,
Stands one nation.
one nation, under God.
And justice for all.
Ah, that was really tough.
I think we got it.
Got it. I wasn't sure about the delay there. So sorry about that. Wendy, could you do roll call?
Director Redford,
Here.
Director D'Ambra,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Here.
Director Van Pelt, is he online?
I do not see him. But
Want me to-
it also says there are 4 participants, and I only see 3 participants, so.
One is YouTube.
Oh, one is
Right.
YouTube. Yeah. So, no, I do not have Director Van Pelt online.
Okay. Director Redfern, do you have any comments before we start? Anything relating to the district that isn't on the agenda that you think you should mention?
The only thing I have is, I was interested in what's happening with the compaction test on the extension for Verizon.
That's on the agenda?
Is it agenda?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, so we can talk about that. I see Director Beard is here. Hello.
Hello.
Do you have any comments, Director Beard, before we get started? Anything pertaining to the district that's not on the agenda?
No, not at the moment.
And Director D'Ambra?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, we can go to public comment. If there's anybody, I don't see anyone in the room, Mike, and I don't see anyone on line, but this is the time that people would have an opportunity to comment on something not on the agenda. And since there doesn't seem to be anyone, we can move on to reports, and we can start with our general manager's report. Mike LeBrun.
Great, thank you. I thought I had a very brief written, but I didn't see it. I may not have made the packet because it was so brief. But basically, I've spent my time in the last 2 weeks supporting the MOU negotiations team, and we did get live, and we're advertising for general manager. I actually did speak to somebody today who I expect to see an application from, so some interest out there. We're 2 weeks, we're closing that application period on the 31st, so the end of the month. That's 2 weeks from tomorrow. So while we don't have any applications as of yet, I can't say I'd really expect to see any applications as of yet. We did publicize in the local papers and the industry publications, and I think we spent about $2,500 to date when he's nodding their head up and down on our publication, and that's been our only cost other than staff cost to date on that. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions from directors.
So.
I unrelated question that I meant to follow up with at our last meeting, Mike. I wondered if we had heard anything about earthquake insurance, if we have it.
We don't have it. And last I heard, they were checking with their underwriter to see how much it will cost.
Got a question about that. You
Okay, so it's an ongoing.
Yeah.
Some years back after the earthquake in the San Fernando Valley, there was a tremendous loss for the insurance companies. They went on, I believe Congress passed some legislation that after $5 million, that's all they'd be responsible for, or 15, there was some number, numerical limit that the federal government would cover for earthquake loss, catastrophic earthquake loss, after that number for insurance companies. So could a district qualify to get coverage like that?
I believe they have a state plan.
That's a state plan.
I believe they have a state plan. I'm not 100% sure, but I've been dealing with insurance for just standard coverage for homes. And the top 5 insurers have pulled out of California completely
Because of cost.
because of the fires and mudslides and all
Risk.
of it. I just spent the last 2 weeks trying to insure a property and I didn't get insurance until after closing. That's how bad it was. Yeah.
I don't know the details of
I
that program.
remember they did that in 1993. They had the earthquake, and it was 20th Century was the major casualty holder out of the San Fernando Valley, and they concentrated there. And then they got bought out. Somebody swallowed them.
There is a state fund
Yeah.
for normal insurance, and I believe there's a state fund for earthquake insurance.
Is that,
FEMA again?
What's the question?
would FEMA kick in?
FEMA.
Again, I don't know.
It would have to be a natural, they would have to be declared a disaster area for FEMA to kick in.
Right.
Because FEMA did kick in for
Mudslide.
the mudslide and the Thomas Fire and mudslide. Yeah.
Director Beard, did you have another comment?
My comment was that I had just missed part of what you said about not receiving any applications for.
For the general manager position,
General
we have
manager.
not received any to date, but what I was saying was 2 weeks from closing, I can't say we were expecting yet.
Okay, all right. But you're expecting some to come in? You're hoping.
You were hoping, I'd like to see 12 come in, and so the committee can pare it down to 3 to 5 for your board, and you've got plenty of options, but we
Okay.
won't know until we close on that.
Okay, great, thank
To
you.
answer Director Beard's question, Mike was saying he spoke with someone on the phone about the position and he expects that they will apply, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then we can move on to legal counsel report.
I don't have a report tonight.
Okay, and secretary treasurer.
We have conflicts of interest forms that are due April 1st. So we have Bob, Bradley, Frank, and Karen that need to file their forms. So if you can't remember your password to do it online, let me know and I'll reset it. And it'll send you a link and you can do it online. If not, you can get the paper.
Yeah, I think I got an email.
I-
somewhere.
Yes, I've tried to do mine twice and I have a very good password hint and it didn't work. So I will be contacting you probably early next week, Wendy.
Okay.
Okay, and then for the committees, I don't know that we have anything to report. The manager reported the status on the search and we haven't had a meeting. We're needing some applicants. And then the committee Frank and I are on continue to meet, but we will be covering that later. And then did any other committees meet, Wendy?
The finance committee met, but we'll discuss that
It's on the agenda.
on the agenda.
Okay, very good. Then we can move on to the consent agenda, the consent items. Everybody received the minutes from the February 16th meeting. And then there's a finance committee minutes from March 11th and the disbursements February 12th through March 11th. We've had an opportunity to review them. If anyone has questions or would like to make changes, this would be the time to do it. If there are not any changes or questions, I would like a motion to approve the consent items.
We do need to make the change in the minutes to report that Director Beard was here, not on Zoom.
Okay, so the motion would be to accept the consent items with the change mentioned by Wendy, that Director Beard was here in person.
Correct.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Director Beard has made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so a second from Director Deambra. Wendy?
Has Director Van Pelt joined yet?
No,
No? Okay.
Well, it says
and
5 participants now.
yes.
Oh, somebody named Mike. Okay.
So we have a motion by Director Beard and a second by Director Deambra to approve the consent agenda with the change to include David Beard as being in person for February's meeting. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Redford.
Aye.
Director Beard.
Aye.
Director Deambra.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Van Pelt. Absent.
I don't know. That is the rumor we're hearing, but he did say he was zooming in. He didn't say,
Yeah.
we didn't ask.
You might
him.
not know about daylight savings time. It's over there.
I can text him. I can put it on his phone.
But wouldn't that,
Should be here early in the morning too.
you've been here earlier? I'm
No, I
trying
think,
to- Since we,
Yeah,
it's
it's morning over
5:30,
there
so it's like,
now.
yeah, this would have been 4:30 last week. So it could be a daylight savings time thing. We'll see. And you're texting them, so,
Maybe, I haven't seen it.
okay.
I do.
Okay, and while Wendy does that, we can go ahead and move on to the action items. 7A, a review and discussion of Horizon Drive warranty work. And so I will turn that over to our GM, Mr. LeBrun. I want to
LeBrun,
call
yeah,
you
good.
LeBron.
Dude, that's fine. Thank you, President Jones. So I was asked to add this on there to review and discuss the Horizon Drive warranty work. I think your board knows Horizon Drive project was under construction last summer. That was completed this past fall. Your district signed a notice of completion back in November 2021. December, we saw some big rains in the area, and that exposed or caused some settling along the trace of the pipeline through the private property easements that we purchased along 2 properties. Some pretty good settlement there. Then in January, well, anyway, it didn't rain throughout January, February. That allowed us time to get back in there and actually fashion a repair to that work. That was just during the week of February 14th, and that repair was completed. I think I reported to your board last time we were in session. We repaired, that was warranty work that Specialty did to repair the settlement. But at the same time, we had them lower a manhole that the property owner was complaining about. It was too high. It was, the manhole's located in the property owner's driveway, and it was too high and causing the property owner problems. So we looked at that and said, well, let's make that manhole right as well. Now, that is something the district paid for, but we did not pay for the repair work. As you may recall, on the project, we did have compaction testing done specifically along where the pipeline run leaves Horizon Drive and transitions through, I call it 4 different private properties on its way to Highway 246. And along that trace, there were some 23 density tests done, compaction tests done. They all came out at greater than 90%. A number of them were done right adjacent to the house where we saw some of the more pronounced settlement. nonetheless, and the density tests were performed by a consultant that the district hires that works for the district. It's not somebody who works for the contractor. Okay, so I did speak with our contractor, our engineer, the geotechnical consultant we hired, and our construction management person that we hired for the project to try to understand why the settlement occurred. Deep, 10-foot deep trench, very thin, tough soils. And then ultimately the area is inundated by water during the storms. And that was not, the water drainage problems across the Larson property are not something that were caused by the project. They have a little retaining wall adjacent to the drainage creek that runs along their property boundary. So any water that comes on their property can't actually make it into the drainage creek because of this feature they have in their front yard. All pre-existed us. In any event, we did rework. That was completed on February 18th. Our construction management team agreed and signed off. We did not do compaction testing as part of the rework. I have to say, we did compaction testing as part of the initial work, and it really didn't help us identify the problem that resulted. So I didn't see a need for doing additional compaction testing in this case. That's where it sits. That's what I have to report, and can answer any questions from your board on that.
When does our warranty end on that?
The warranty is a 1-year warranty, typical. I believe it's a
November.
typical construction warranty
So November of this year.
Of next.
of this year.
This year.
This year.
I have a question for Counselor on that. When a warranty, for example, like David, I was just thinking the same thing, has a history. Let's say we have it in 6 months and then 9 months, and then it goes out of warranty. If it has a history of problems, are we responsible, or can we be held responsible beyond the warranty because of the history of the problem? Or are we free and clear at the end of the year?
The district doesn't give a warranty, the contractor does, so that
Yeah.
means that we can go back against the contractor for a year after the project. The warranty does not get extended if there are repairs along the way. And the way what the district needs to do to protect itself, if it's got a concern, it's a problem that seems to keep popping up, is to inspect it and watch it carefully. And maybe before that 1 year expires, the district will want to go out and take a good look at it, maybe do some compaction testing at that time. It's just, but to answer your question, the warranty period does not get extended. If you have problems along the way, every time a repair is made, that doesn't trigger a new 1 year warranty period or provide for any kind of an extension.
Bob, how much did that project cost us?
Excuse me?
How much did that project cost us? That project, the Horizon Drive extension, was it?
1.3.
1.3
Is it about right?
or 1.6, somewhere in there?
1-3.
1.3.
All right. We paid to get a job done a certain way, and it spells it out on the contract. It said that we were going to get compacted soil. I believe that the repair is a great repair on the surface, that they used a bobcat to dump soil into the trench, and they wheel rolled it and ran a compactor on the top. But the problem with clay soil is it does not compact really well unless you do it in small lifts. Therefore, we probably have a very compacted soil at 3 feet, but probably at 6 feet or 8 feet or 10 feet, it's loose. It will drop at some point. We did have some rain, but as I recall, it was a couple of rainy days, 2 rainy days. It wasn't anything like we can get here. We are going to end up having to fix that thing again if we do not get it properly checked out. And I can almost guarantee right now, it is not right. When we did the west side with Ron Larson, there was so many sinks in that thing, they showed up for 5 years. And we did have rain then. This little bit of dry or wet weather that we had is perfect for making a nice little adobe block cement on the top of the trench where they compacted it and added more soil. There's no way they had compaction and had a foot fall and a 10-foot in a 10-foot trench. There's no way it could fall that far if they had any type of compaction. There's definitely no 90% compaction when they walked away from it the first time. We paid to have a job done right. We asked for compaction tests, and I understand you might think they're not necessary. Our soil's different than what you might find elsewhere. It's not sandy. With sandy, you could get away a lot more with dumping in trenches and getting better compaction. Here, it's adobe. I do not feel good at all about that trench line. I know it's gonna bite us in the ass. We have to take those compaction tests. To install it correctly, they literally need to pull it out 10 feet deep, lay it back in at 1 foot lifts, and get a wheel roller on an excavator or whatever they need to do, a sheep's foot, and compact it. Or use a fiber plate at every foot to bring it up. I've had to do it. It's a lot of work. There's no way you can just dump soil on the top and compact it. It does level it out and does fill it up again. But should California start getting rain again, we're gonna have a problem there.
You're muted, Karen. We're not, I see you talking, but we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I'm saying that I share Director Redfern's concerns, and I think that he is right about the soil here. I also liked what Mr. Battle said, that maybe it should be checked periodically for the duration. What do you think of that, Director Redfern?
I don't think periodically it's gonna change anything. When you compact the top 3 feet, it does what we call bridging. It ties into the top soil and it makes a perfect bridge. Everything below it's still loose. So later on, when you get moisture, the whole thing can slide down again, and it's trying to get its own compaction.
It will come back again on us. I already know, because I've had the same thing happen on my property when I had to have some stuff done, and I'm 2 years later, you know.
Yeah, I will, again, the repair, I did not require compaction on the repair. My mentality was, the repair was superficial. It was all done at the top. We were not asking the whole thing be dug out and repaired. No, but, and so, and again, I was reflecting on the fact that we did do, when the original project, we did include compaction testing, over 20 spots along that run. And according to our consultant's results, they met compaction and they were at 90%. And what did it do for us?
How deep are those compaction tests being taken at?
Well, in a number of the locations, they're taking it at 2 separate depths along that 10-foot profile as they're coming up in their lifts. And I did review pictures of it, and they had people down compacting it in the hole, you know. But I guess, you know, how it was done, when it was done, it's where we are here, where we are today. I mean, the district accepted the project back in November, and then we had some settlement, and they did warranty work on the settlement. But I don't know, I don't believe we were going to get. And I guess we could go to that argument, but this would be an argument that we would exercise from Mr. Battles to say, we're not accepting in the way you repaired that. We think the line needs to be fully exposed and redone over again. And so that is certainly a direction that the district could take on this, but I don't.
I think at the very least, we have to do some compaction tests. We have to find out what is happening down there. It shouldn't be us paying for it. It should be the construction person or the construction company backing their warranty that it's done right. Because I don't believe it is. I think it's a surface repair. When I was working for the district on the west side extension, the company came in and did repairs on a sink. They were able to do 2 blocks in a weekend with 1 man on the ground and 1 guy in the backhoe. They tried to tell me that they got compaction all the way down to, you know, to the pipe and all the way up. And I'm like, really? That's amazing. I said, that's like 600 feet you did with 2 people. Anyways, it fell again a couple months later.
I'll take direction from your board. I think you have limited options as to where you are right now. I think that trench took a lot of water, because like I described, I don't know if the water's coming across Horizon Drive or what, I don't know. I wasn't out there for it. I saw pictures, I saw evidence. And what I would hope is that trench did all the settling that it is going to do, at least.
But we're hoping, and right now we still
There's
hold the
nothing
cards.
else.
We
Okay,
hold the cards right now.
no, we don't.
We do,
signed
because-
the cards away in
No,
November.
because it's under warranty. It's under warranty till November. We don't have anything after November.
So,
And so if we don't request that this is checked out more carefully, then we get it. It's ours.
I have a question for Counselor here on what he's presenting. That could be a conflict, what you're proposing, and I'll be the devil's advocate here. I'll be the specialty construction.
Mhm.
We fixed it. We made the spec that you spec'd out. It was signed off. It's done. Okay. Legally, now they start, we challenge each other. What do you recommend we do?
Should we go out there and have it watered, right? Have water put on it to see if it's gonna.
I think an option for the district, if there are serious concerns about future settling and there's a suspicion that it wasn't adequately compacted down lower, and it's just compacted near the surface. If that's a concern, if there is a suspicion.
It's
then
not
the
a
dis-
suspicion. It's definitely not compacted correctly, or it wouldn't drop.
Okay, so that gives rise to, a reasonable suspicion or a reasonable concern that there's a problem there. In order to confirm that there's a problem there, it seems to me you need to do some compaction testing. And I assume that you can drill down and do compaction testing near the pipe.
Yeah.
So they can tell what the compaction is further down. But I think that in the absence of any hard evidence, or in the absence of more clear evidence, it would be difficult to require the contractor to pay for that inspection. I think the district would have to pay for the inspection. And then if it turned out that there was a problem, that there was inadequate compaction and the whole trench needed to be excavated again and recompacted, you should be able to require the contractor to pay for the cost of the inspections that identified the problem, and then obviously for the repair work. So I think that is an option. I think the district would have to front the money. I think it'd be very tough to go back to the contractor and think, well, even though we signed off on it, even though we have compaction reports, we think it wasn't compacted well enough, and we want you to pay for some additional compaction reports. Again, I think the district could do that. The only comment I would make is, it sounds like, Mike, you talked to a lot of people here, everybody who was involved. Did any of them indicate that it would be prudent to either do additional compaction tests now, or to go back to the contractor and require everything to be redone? Or did they seem to feel that the district had a good completed project at this point? They're in a.
Well, I spoke specifically to the district engineer on those points. And I said, do you think we should go back in and should we include compaction testing as part of this repair? That again comes at the district's time, not the contractors. That's our money to be spent. And the district engineer said he did not see a reason to go out and do compaction testing on the repair. Because again, it wasn't, the compaction testing didn't give us that result we hoped for on the first part of the project when we did it. It passed compaction testing and still settled. So, I mean, I can go to the GeoSolutions, the geotechnical consulting firm we use, and I can talk to them about going to and doing compaction testing at depth. But I'm most familiar with, I think, as Director Redfern outlines, where you do lifts, and then you do a lift, you compact, you do a lift, and you take a test at that point in the lift. I don't know how you drive down to a depth and then try to take a compaction test there, because I just drove something down there and I compacted that column. But any of it, I don't do compaction testing. I'm not a geotechnical, so I can ask about that. But it would be to the district to say, okay, we want compaction testing done on the repaired areas, and we want to verify that densities were met. And again, and then ask to say, well, in fact, we're suspicious that the original work wasn't done well, as evidenced by the settling we had. So we'd like to do compaction testing at depth along that line, in order to give substance to our suspicion, so that if we get results that say, oh my gosh, you've got voids all up and down this entire line, then we've got some evidence that we can take the specialty and go, you guys are going back to work and we're not paying another dollar. You know what I mean? That's what we'd have to turn up to hand them the evidence to say, you guys, we're not, and then it becomes legal because whatever, but we have the evidence that we need to try to force something. And again, that would be if we can do at-depth compaction testing for a pipe that's already in situ, it's already laid. So we're going to try to test in that soil column above it for compaction, and then find something that's so what I want to say, subpar, voids and those types of things that say that give us a case that we could win legally, because that's where we'll go.
What would it cost us to do the compaction testing?
I don't know. We'll find out. Report back if we can even do that style of compaction testing. I can get a bid on that.
Yeah.
I'll bring the board back a number.
It wouldn't be that difficult to dig down.
That was my question.
One of the big difficulties, Karen, did you have a question you didn't want to?
Well, I was just saying that was my question, what Director Beard asked. I understand it would be our responsibility to find out if there's a problem. We need to know now, but before we can make that decision, we need to know what the cost is.
I think you gotta do it no matter what, because you're gonna pay for it now or you're gonna pay for it later if it's not right.
I think it's very important to have it done, but if it cost $1 million, then it wouldn't be worth it to do it. If
Depends on how much it costs to do the testing and what we think it's going to cost to do the repairs in the future. So, we'll have to get that information and weigh that option.
So staff
and
direction.
if there are settling problems in the next few months, then that gives the perfect opportunity to pursue it. Right now, I still think it would be good to know. I think it's important that we make sure it's done right.
It's not going to settle unless we have rain before November. That's the only thing that's going to give us an answer, is if we have rain before November, and that's going to be a significant, a decent rain. So, I mean, we're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
But I would like to have our general manager bring back options and costs for those options at the next meeting. Does that sound reasonable?
Do we need a straw vote or anything? Staff's got direction.
Direction.
Clear direction.
I think that's clear enough direction.
Okay. So I'm going to find out about how compaction testing can work for this institute now. And specifically, I think what we want to try to find is evidence that it's at depth. We still have problems at depth. And because it's that type of evidence that can get us specialty back on our hook, okay?
If they can't do that type, they have that ground penetrating radar that just walks behind that shows voids. That might be another option. They can walk the line.
Yeah. And then obviously, and we have an easement. The types of things we're talking about accessing the easement on, I don't think we're talking about any big equipment, at least on compaction testing. I'll find out because obviously we've got easement access and okay, but I've got the record.
Yeah, see what our options. I mean, it may not be doing a core drill. It might be, what our options are.
I like that. Thank you very much. Let us move on to item 7B, the Santa Barbara LAFCO 2022 Special District Selection, Election and Alternate Nomination and Election Procedure. When this came before. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Mr. LeBrun.
Thank you, President Jones. On this item, it's actually, we've got two ballots in front of us from LAFCO. One is for who's got it labeled out here? Which seat is this?
You want me to do it?
Oh, well, let me muddle through. Okay, but I know you had it on here.
It's a special district. It's a seat for this.
Yeah, special district seat. So our LAFCO actually has 2 seats for special district.
One seat, and then.
1 seat and an alternate. Then,
No alternate. They have to, they're actually trying to change the procedure of how the voting happens.
right, that's the other ballot.
Yes.
Okay, so there's 2 ballots, and one that's in front of you. We have 2 candidates were nominated, Mr. Jay Freeman, Mr. Ed Fuller. We forwarded that information about them. And so it'll be to your board to vote for one of those 2 candidates to fill the regular special district member seat at LAFCO. And so that's our person. We can handle that ballot first, right?
Yes.
Can we
And
separate those?
then they need to designate a board member alternate to vote in the absence of the board president. And then vote on the alternate nomination and election procedure.
Right. So under both these ballots, since President Jones is in Texas, your board will define an alternate director to sign the ballot with your board's vote. Okay. So your board gets the vote, but the presiding officer typically signs the ballot. So in the first one,
When is the ballot turned in?
April 11th.
yeah, they're due by April 11th. So
I'll
we'll
be here then.
turn it in directly.
We can get an alternate, but I will be back by then, but we can go ahead and get an alternate in case I have a flat tire.
Yeah. I think just to complete the work. And then the second ballot that your board will consider is to approve an all-mail ballot process for these LAFCO nominations. The reason you're seeing it, this first ballot, is because at the annual LAFCO meeting, they didn't get enough of a quorum to actually have the vote. Okay, and this happens often. And so they want to change the procedure to allow for all mail-in ballot for these LAFCO nominations in the future. Okay? So we can consider one ballot at a time,
Yes.
I'd expect. And I don't know, I don't know if any of your directors know either Mr. Fuller or Mr. Freeman.
Well, Mr. Freeman's here.
Mr. Freeman's
Oh.
here.
This Jay Freeman, incumbent, I don't know if this is CSD. He may want to speak to your board. That's typically how I see this done as they come campaign, but I don't know.
Would Mr. Freeman like to make any remarks?
You all know me now for a number of years. I have spent a lot of time, I think, getting to understand the operations and position of your district. I think it's beneficial to have somebody on LAFCO who appreciates that kind of level of that kind of level of care to your specific situation. And so I hope that you would continue to support me, but I won't be offended personally if you don't.
I have one question.
Yeah,
Do we lose our audio if you get the job?
I already have this. I already have.
He's an incumbent.
We have a couple of people,
I don't take it
or
personally if you don't.
a couple of people on Zoom. I'm sorry, were you finished, Jay? There are people on Zoom. I wondered if anyone that is participating via Zoom has any public comment. I don't see anything.
I'm
So,
seeing a head shake no from Mr. Sam Cohen. And yeah, unless they chime in, I don't have video of either one, so assuming no.
And Bradley's still not.
Okay, so we can close the public comment. Excuse me, did I miss something, Wendy?
No, I just asked if Bradley was on yet.
I did not see him on yet. Now, would we make a motion with who we would want to nominate? Is that how the process would go, Mr. Battles?
I believe these candidates have both already been nominated. So you just vote for, you can make a motion to vote for one or the other. This can go a couple of different ways, just like it did when we were electing our own officers, but one approach, and I think the preferred approach would be someone to make a motion for one of the candidates, and if there's a second, you'd vote on it. And if they don't get, I guess, 3 out of 4 votes, then there'd be a motion to elect the other person, to vote for the other person.
Okay, well, at this time, I would like to make a motion to support Mr. Freeman.
I second it.
A
We have a
second by
motion
Mr.
by President
Redfern.
Jones. Yep, seconded by Director Redfern.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Director Jones and a second by Director Redfern to vote for Jay Freeman as the board member for the Santa Barbara LAFCO. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Redfern.
Aye.
Director Beard.
Aye.
Director D'Ambra.
Yes.
Director Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, and then our ballot number 2. And again, this, voting yes on this ballot would approve an all-mail ballot process for nomination and election of special district members on Santa Barbara LAFCO.
Can we change that to all mail-in ballot, not mail ballot?
I was going to suggest that too. I'm like, what about the females?
In the IL.
Yeah.
I just, yeah, of course, it's the official ballot, so we're not changing anything.
Right, yeah.
Select either yes or no.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I make a comment on this one?
We do have public comment. Mr. Freeman would like to make public
Yes.
comment.
So the way this process is supposed to work, if you don't vote for this, is that there is an in-person meeting that occurs that typically gets scheduled, although this last time it actually was in North County, but it typically gets scheduled in Galena. It tends to be scheduled during the Santa Barbara County Special District Association meeting. And the result is that there is a bias in terms of who feels able to drive to the meeting and who's already at the meeting. I would go so further to say that once that meeting begins, they typically fail to meet quorum, and then they will spend some time calling around their friends, trying to get people to show up to the meeting in order to finalize that they get to meet quorum. And so the in-person meeting process, when it meets quorum, I actually will say is extremely unfair and wastes everyone's time because it usually doesn't meet quorum. And so it would be much preferable if you move to the all mail-in ballot, which is also much less confusing because typically districts then put it on their agenda, make a vote, send everything in. Whereas the in-person process really kind of has to be an on-the-fly decision by one person who shows up to the meeting, because there would be a floor nomination process where somebody could just kind of get thrown into the mix and provide a 5-minute spiel. So I hope that you vote for this change in process.
Okay.
Any other comments? Questions by the board? I like the idea of showing up, but I understand what you're saying, Mr. Freeman. So I'm just interested to hear what my colleagues think.
I'm
For it.
opinion,
I
yeah,
probably wouldn't be there to vote, so.
yeah. I understand how it is hard to get a quorum at a lot of meetings.
Well, does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion
Two.
to adopt this all-mail voter.
All mail. But still could vote yes on ballot number 2.
Yeah.
So a motion.
Okay, so Ms. Director Redfern has made a motion to vote yes on number 2. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so there's a motion by Director Redfern, a second by Director Beard. Wendy?
All right, so we have a motion by Redfern and a second by Director Beard to vote yes for the all mail-in ballot process. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Redfern.
Aye.
Director Beard.
Aye.
Director Deambra,
Yes.
Director Jones.
Yes.
Alternate.
Designating the alternate.
Yeah, and so now we're going to backstep just a bit and designate a member, a board member alternate to sign the ballots in the absence of President Jones. So does that need to go by vote or?
I think we should have formal action on that. The form said board member designated by special district board. So that designation, I think, should be by motion.
Well, I make a motion that our vice president do it if I'm not present.
Okay, motion's been
Is there a
made by
second?
President Jones and seconded by Director Redfern.
To select the vice president, Director Beard as the alternate. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Redford.
Aye.
Director Beard.
Aye.
Director Deambra.
Yes.
Director Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. So now we can move to action item C. And this is for the CSDA Board of Directors call for nomination for seat B for the 2023 through 2025 term. Mike LeBrun, you can give us a staff report.
Yes, this item actually, we brought before your board at the last regular meeting, and it was actually Director Van Pelt who asked that we put that over for a month so he might consider it. So that's why we're back to your board with that. As outlined in the staff report here, this is simply a nomination, so you'd have to run for the seat. If you were elected, then you'd have commitments as outlined. Again, a 3-year term and representation up in Sacramento for regular meetings, quarterly meetings, and attending the CSDA annual conference and other events. With that in mind, staff stands ready to answer any questions, but what we'd be looking for is unless Director Van Pelt has indicated, he has not indicated to staff that he desires this nomination. And so I don't know if any directors have other insights or are themselves interested.
I know I don't have time.
A month ago, Director Van Pelt had some interest, but he did not know if he was going to have the time. And so since he's not able to be with us tonight, I think unless someone else has some interest in running for this seat, we can probably move on. Anyone? Okay, well, I think that answers it.
Okay.
So now we can go on to item D, which is authorizing remote teleconference meetings. We've done this several times. We can hear the staff report.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is the monthly resolution to adopt the resolution in order to hold the meetings by teleconference without adhering to the requirements of the Brown Act. It will be good from tonight to April 14th. And we'll have to re-adopt it until every month until we decide to not hold the teleconference meetings like we have been.
I make that motion.
So we have a motion from Director Beard. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Director Deambra seconds. Wendy?
Okay, so we have a motion by Director Beard and a second by Director Deambra to adopt resolution 22-205, resolution of the Board of Directors of the San Ynez Community Services District authorizing continuation of remote teleconference meetings of the district's legislative bodies pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E for the period of March 16th to April 14th. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Redford.
Aye.
Director Beard.
Aye.
Director Deambra.
Yes.
Director Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Wendy. Now we will go on to item E, which is the acceptance of streetlights on Pneumatica Street. And we will go to staff report, and I believe there is someone here who would like to make public comment also. So let's go ahead and get the staff report, and then open it up to the public.
Very good. So there have been 6 streetlights installed in the public right-of-way off Numancia Street. These were related to, they were a project by the Chumash Indian tribe in that area on their cultural center, I believe. But again, to stress, the lights were required. They're in the public right-of-way, required by the county. The lights were actually installed. Design standard was the Pacific. It is PG&E here, not Southern California. Yeah, PG&E standard, and then actually installed by PG&E. And these lights have been energized since June of 2021. And as it's been described to me on through the process and working with the county, it sounds like it became a bit of a surprise for the county to realize that, some 30 years ago or better, back in the 80s, our community services district took over the then county lighting district, the San Ynez County Lighting District. So with that result, then when it came time for the public agency to assume the lights in the public right of way, the county said, that's not us, go talk to San Ynez. And so they came and talked to us. And I've outlined a little bit, we looked into this a little bit to understand how the district is funded for its lighting services. And as I've described here in the staff report, the district received an additional fractional share of what's called pass-through property taxes. So these are property taxes, part of that 1% property tax that you pay to the county that's passed through to special districts. Before we took on the lighting, we had a 0.0248 fraction. And then we took on the lighting, they added 0.0017. And so our pass-through property tax fraction is 0.0265. We believe that we verified, we reached out to the county assessor's office and trying to verify that there haven't been any changes since to that fraction, since we saw that in 88 timeframe. And they tell us that to the best of their knowledge that remains, that nothing has changed on that. So what that means to us is that about 6.5% of the pass-through property taxes we receive each year can be linked back to us taking over that lighting powers back then. Okay, the way we've been accounting for our lighting district here in since before Wendy's time, which is goes back at least a decade. 06 we found out is that we've been saying we receive this pass-through property tax. It doesn't come apportioned out by lighting district and district. We just get a lump sum, and then we move $4,000 currently over on an annual basis into our lighting fund. Okay, right now our lighting district powers. I have it in here, don't I? 9 street lights, and that costs us about $1,400 annually. And so then the remainder of that 4,000 is why we see our lighting district fund, our reserve fund building slowly over time. It's the difference between the allocation of $4,000 over there and the expenditure of $1,400 on the 9 lights we currently have. But as I outlined in my final fiscal implications paragraph here, we're getting close to $200,000 a year now as property values in this county have gone up. And 6.42% of that is actually closer to $12,000. So at least from a cost perspective, certainly our lighting district can handle the additional 6 street lights. And I think just, from the application process, this didn't go as maybe the way what we'd like to envision and envision going forward as we would engage and coordinate with the county. So when streetlights are proposed for any project, if there are public right-of-way streetlights proposed and that project is within our lighting district, then what we want to expect, what we'd expect is to have coordination from the county early on to get us involved in what the lights are, how they're going to be and whatnot. But in this case, that did not happen. You know, coordination between two agencies takes two agencies to work at it. And I think the district needs to make sure that we're represented in the future going forward. But in the meantime, it would be staff's recommendation that you consider this acceptance of these streetlights. Open for any questions you have.
Okay, do we have any public comments before? Are there
Yes.
any public comments?
Yes, can you hear me? My name is Sam Cohen.
Yes.
I'm the Government Affairs and Legal Officer for the San Ynez Band of Chumash Indians. I'm also the president of the San Ynez Chamber of Commerce. But I'm here to answer any questions you might have about our project. You know, San Ynez values its night skies. We were opposed to any kind of streetlights on Numancia, which is kind of the street between the Pizza Shack and the new cultural center. But the county was adamant that for safety reasons, we had to put up streetlights, and PG&E had its own standards for streetlights. So things, in order to create a sidewalk for pedestrians, we had to do streetlights. So we are dedicating them to the public domain. And it turns out your agency maintains streetlights in San Ynez. So we ask for you to accept our streetlights.
Are there any questions for Mr. Cohen or staff on this?
The
I
only
mean,
question I
to
had
me,
is,
clearly it's our responsibility. So is this Director Beard?
yes, the only question I had was what it.
Go ahead, Director Beard.
Since someone's been paying the electric bill on it or paying the fees on it, what are they? What are actual?
Yeah, the actual cost, these are flat rate, the way the light's going, so
That's
it's
what I
flat
thought it
rate, so I
said.
thought I had.
It's like
it.
$11 a month or.
That was
Yeah, it's
$800 total, according
It's a-
to your staff report.
Yeah, okay, so it's 800.
Yeah, $11.20 a month per light. Okay, so yeah, it's running about $70 per month, and the applicant did provide me electric bills that show that and verify that. And as I noted in my staff report, these are slightly higher wattage lights, again, a PG&E standard and construction, but they are a higher water light than our other 9 lights, and that's why they come in at a slightly higher rate. It's a flat rate that handles the maintenance and repair of those lights, so it's flat to us each month.
Okay, and that PG&E maintains them.
And PG&E maintains them.
Okay, all right, I've got my questions answered.
We, Beans,
Oh,
we got the
Go ahead, Director Redfern.
Beans, the cart got.
I had a
put-
comment also, but I'd like to hear from you.
Beans, the cart's ahead of the horse, and we don't have the permits done. Might it be good to go ahead and have the Chumash finish filling out the form, so at least we have them? And we can say, we did proceed as we normally would once we were informed, and have the permits at least here with the rest of our lighting, instead of now we have a precedence that somebody doesn't need permits and still can get their lighting.
We have a
Permitting process.
that calls for a permit application, but we don't have an application per se. We don't have, and so I asked that the applicant provide us a written letter asking us to accept the streetlights. There are a number of things that talk about, design standards and things if you're coming in on the front end. But,
I understand,
okay.
but what I read on it is there is an application, or at least there was at some point. Maybe it's not, it could have been shredded, trust me. But we should have some type of form saying that they applied for this, or we don't really have a lighting district, because you don't need to go to the lighting district. You can just put in your lights.
if.
I
Especially
agree
you can just put in your
100%.
lights and you can pay for them
Yes.
unless the district it's the district's decision whether they're gonna take the lights or not. And again, the applicant did provide us a request, a letter with the information that was
Right.
appropriate for this application.
So if we don't have a form and we are a lighting district, maybe we should get a form, get it to them. Doesn't cost them anything to sign it. And at least we have it on file.
This is,
So-
that was along the lines of my comment, Mike. My concern is we should have a policy and we should adhere to our policy. And the part that bothered me is just that we were completely left out of the discussion. And I don't think that's the tribe's fault, not even trying to have blame here. But if we had a policy and we followed it and the county was aware of it, then maybe we would, have it where we were involved in what we're going to be responsible for maintaining and paying for. So I think the tribe has done what they're supposed to. We're trying to now figure out what is our policy and how can we proceed in the future. I think Director Redfern is on the money. I don't have a problem with paying for these lights. It's our responsibility, but I don't like the county giving us assignments and not having input. This is our district. That would be my comment.
Couple comments regarding the procedure. We do have a policy that spells out exactly how applications are supposed to be processed. And this is resolution 90-01. And it states that a written application for additional streetlights shall be submitted to the board of directors for approval. The focus of this policy is really for the installation and activation of streetlights as opposed to an after the fact request to operate them going forward once they've already been installed. You could look at it as a situation where they didn't really have to come to us for approval to install them because they weren't asking us to pay for them. I think this application this policy maybe was intended to address a situation where the district would actually purchase and install and activate the lights and thereafter maintain them. So we've skipped over the first part of what this policy is supposed to address. But what it states is you have a written application. Public safety is the primary consideration for the board of directors. There's conditions, which I'll get to in a minute, that apply to all requests for installation of street lights. The district manager shall determine the cost of installing, which is too late, and operating the lights, which he's done. The district manager shall certify that the costs of installing and operating the requested lights shall not exceed revenues collected from property taxes. It's not stated as a certification, but the staff report lays out all of that information so you can see that there are revenues to cover the costs. So with respect to Director Redfern's reference to an application form or the issuance of a permit, I think that would be fine and that might be helpful. I think that the letter that Chumash submitted satisfies the requirements of an application and then it's board approval as distinguished from actual issuance of a permit. I think it might be helpful to have an application form or at least a page that says your application can be a letter and it has to address all of these issues. And then the district could develop a permit form or it could just say board approval is enough and then that's reflected in the minutes. The conditions that go along with this are that the applicant is required to submit a letter of support from all property owners within a 200-foot radius. And that's presumably so the board, before it approves the installation, can determine if neighbors are concerned about the light pollution or have other concerns about that. But this is focusing on installation. The board shall determine a need exists to provide lighting for the safety and general welfare of the public. It must be determined that no other source of funds is available to defray the cost of installing, maintaining, and operating the street lights. I think that applies both to the installation and to the ongoing costs of operating. And there must be adequate monies available from the district's lighting fund. I think that issue has been addressed. So I think about the only thing that isn't covered here that relates to the operation and not the installation, which the district wasn't involved with, is there's no other source available to defray the cost of operating. I think you can make that finding because the county's saying they're not going to pay for them.
And
Well-
that's part of my concern, Rick, that I don't know that the people in our district had an opportunity to talk about what Mr. Cohen rightly mentions, light pollution. If anybody remembers the stuff from the place at the corner of Refugio there and Highway 246, the Rona Barrett project. Lights are a big deal here, and I won't belabor the point anymore, but for this to all be ordered and done without going through the proper application and hearing from people, that concerns me. So I hope that whatever our policy is, that we can somehow figure out a way to ensure that it's followed the way it is normally when lights are put in.
Well, and staff would take the direction here as well that to develop an application form, because we don't have one, but we could certainly develop one off of the resolution. For projects going forward, as far as the district being involved and at the table and a decision maker, that's what district staff, has to. I can't speak to whether the general manager at the time was invited to a meeting when this project kicked off and, just was asleep and didn't say, hey, wait, you're going to be putting in streetlights. You're going to have to apply to the district or not. I can't speak to that, but I can say that, coordinating with a county when you're a small special district is a challenge, and it takes a lot of work to develop and maintain relationships with a large county agency that really looks at a small special district. Like, for the most part, you're just a pain in the butt to them, so you really have to work to get these relationships. And so I can't say whose fault it was. Was it the county or was it the San Ynez Community Services? Who was asleep when we should have been involved way back when this was being planned? I can't speak to that, but we can certainly develop an application and a process for going forward. I don't.
I think we direct staff to develop an application and make a motion to accept the streetlights as part of the district as presented.
Okay, so we have a motion from Director Beard to acceptance of the street lights on Numancia Street and direct staff to have a application form for any application moving forward. So is there a second? Or does that cover it, Rick?
I think so.
I'll second
Okay,
it.
so Director Beard, so Director DeAmber, did you second it?
Yes.
We
Okay,
have a motion by
Wendy,
Director Beard, we have a second by Director D'Ambra to accept the streetlights on Numancia Street and to direct staff to create a streetlight application. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Redford.
Aye.
Director Beard.
Aye.
Director D'Ambra.
Yes.
Director Jones.
yes.
Motion passes.
Can I ask a question?
We've got a public
Yes.
comment, Mr. Freeman.
Yes, I see
So-
Mr. Freeman.
Thank you. So my question is related to a concern Karen mentioned in passing. I'm curious, this is why it wasn't really related to affecting emotion also. That's that or anything, but with the people in the area having to take on the cost of income street lighting, is this the kind of thing where you might end up like after application processes having some kind of benefit assessment district where you like target specific costs towards certain individuals, or is that not the kind of thing that would make sense?
For lights in particular?
Yeah.
It's a good question. Because I had asked, one of the things I did in researching this was in trying to find out, I figured when the district when the services district took over the lighting district, that there was an additional fraction of pass-through taxes. And we found out that in fact that was. Well, then the county said, so you got your money, now accept your lights. And I said, now wait a minute. Yeah, I imagine 6 more lights it will cover, and this was before I really did the math, and maybe it covered quite a few more than 6, but it doesn't cover lights forever. It doesn't cover 1 million more street lights. So then what happens? And actually I got what I felt was a very thorough and fair answer back from the county on this. Is they said, when you get street light in more urbanized areas, and they brought up Isla Vista, in areas that had become, they're rural, but had become more urbanized, they needed more lights. They said that fraction supports it to a point and can help you get to your lighting district formation. But that's when you start forming actual benefit zones to say, okay, and this may occur here in the district. If your board has interest in carrying forward your lighting powers and expressing them throughout downtown San Ynez, and wants to get out there and ask the community, do we want lights? What would that look like? How would we do that? Well, we've got money at least in our fund right now to get started. But if you put streetlights, through any core of downtown, it would take a benefit zone where there'd have to be an additional tax, because you'd quickly outstrip, what we're looking at here, like $10,000 or $11,000 a year currently. So it's the lighting district money can get you started, but if you're getting into, more intense lighting, then that becomes a special benefit zone, which then is taxed on properties according to their zone of benefit, right? How close they are and how much benefit. The process.
I'm not sure that the neighbors know they even had a say in those lights. And apparently they didn't, because nobody asked them. We don't even know if they're happy with those street lights.
Yeah.
Well,
I can tell you, I had an office building where the county required me to put sidewalks in order, and I had to put sidewalks in, and
right.
It was put out there in the planning process, and in the permit process, one person didn't want them, but we had to put sidewalks in.
Right.
So,
the approved design standard of the area by now. I did ask about complaints specifically, because I said, I realize we're not at that point of it, but I want to be able to tell my board if this is a lightning rod over there on Numancia. And they said, we have not received any specific complaints, but they did, as Mr. Cohen outlined, they actually received a letter from the Dark Skies folks for their commitment to dark skies, specifically, I think, to the lighting, the work they did on site at the cultural center to light that facility. And they brought in an architect who specializes, and the Dark Sky organization said, thank you very much. You guys are doing the right thing. But I think when it comes to street lights, what we see is that safety element takes over, and it's PG and E in the county, and Mr. Cohen can tell us, but I doubt if the Dark Sky architect was able to say, turn down that street light. But they have not heard any complaints, and we hadn't had any complaints in-house. Sometimes, people come to us for anything they want to complain, so we didn't have that. So we're hopeful. Okay. Very good.
Okay, well, I think we've satisfied that. Thank you all. We can move on then to number F, which is review and discussion of LAFCO MSR survey questionnaire. And I will turn that over to our general manager, Mike LeBrun.
Thank you again, President Jones. I think this is a topic that kind of runs in, along with many of your board's concerns as far as what services the district's providing currently, overlapping services, possibilities for expansion of current service or expansion of current services and services boundaries. LAFCO is just starting this process now for municipal services review. They approved it. I think I've got it here in your staff report. The commission, the LAFCO commission, just told their approved this update just in February. And it starts with this questionnaire. Your board has the full questionnaire here as part of its package. The cover letter from Mr. Prater, who I believe is still on with us, and then the 7-page questionnaire. What you'll see in this questionnaire is many of these, what's your website address? Not a whole lot of discussion here at the board about our website address or many of these items, but I think right up front under item B is really where we get into what I would term kind of those policy areas. We welcome your board's input and questions on any of these. Staff is beginning to assemble this information. Most of it, all I got to do is ask Wendy and she just tells me. But under boundaries, if you read under boundaries, you can see it. This is, I could read all 5 of those questions to you, but I don't know that I need to. But those are policy related questions that staff would like to hear from your board on. And then I also, under other information, this was page 6 of 7. I noticed, I thought question number 8 looked like it had some policy in it, and maybe a number of other questions as your board sees fit to comment. But I do want to point out, we're starting a process. I've talked to Mr. Prater, let him know that some of these questions, certainly some of these around policy, we may not be able to answer thoroughly right now, but we're going to get to work on it. But that the brunt of the other questions, all the facts and figures, we do expect to be back to him by March 31st. That's when he's asked to receive comments on this. But attachment 2, I included out of Mr. Prater's presentation to his commission. And this is just to help you see what kind of process we're ahead here. We're looking at ahead. And just to note that the LAFCO hearing to consider this municipal services update and sphere review is currently scheduled for April 6th, 2023. Okay, so it's a year-long process, and that's why I went ahead and put a schedule in here, so that it starts with a questionnaire, but then there along the way there are going to be opportunities for our agency and other like agencies to gather at the table, talk about overlapping boundaries, talk about possibilities of sharing services or the gamut here. So that's the process we're starting, and we're here today to get input from your board as to what we want to do.
At one point, our board discussed having a special meeting to discuss this. There's an awful lot here. And as you say, some of it's straightforward, but some of these questions are a little more complex in my mind. Like when it asks sphere of influence questions, we have been asked to annex certain areas. And since the last municipal service review, I think that should be included, whether it's something we desire or people desire of us, that should be part of the discussion. I think it was 2017, the tribe wrote to us. Wendy may know of it, remember the letter, asking to annex the area next to Meadowvale there.
Within our, so your district has a services boundary, and it has a sphere of influence, and the sphere of influence is broader than the current services boundary. For the most part, there's very little SOI area left. I think since, also in your packet, I've included the last 2 municipal services review updates, and so the last one was 2012. And that one has the old, I think you've had an annex since annexation was processed since then. Okay, that west side, we call it, was processed since this old MSR. So LAFCO looks to the way LAFCO defines a sphere of influence is it says is that your 20-year service horizon. This is an area we're not currently serving, but we could see ourselves serving within the next 20 years. I believe that's how a sphere of influence is defined. And again, you still have a little area to what I'd call the south of 246, if I'm not incorrect, that is not annexed in, but is within your sphere of influence. I believe everything on the north side of 246 is currently within your services boundary, thanks to that last annexation that was processed. Okay. So,
We
and again,
also
and right now,
received the white paper. Oh, there was a white paper that was done in 2002 that was sent to all the board members within the last couple of months that spoke of all the different unincorporated areas in the valley and how we might serve them as a district. There have been different moves for that to happen. It's always controversial, but these are things that we as a board should be aware of.
well, and I thought I included that white paper.
It's in there. I just saw you come by it.
Yeah, okay, there it is. It's yeah, that goes back, that's attachment 5 on the item. So I did include that because that was the last you know, strategic planning or planning document that we could find, you know, that tried to capture your board's thoughts at that time. And I think that that's, you know, I think that there is a lot here because this is your policy. This is your vision for your district. And it's something that I think as individuals, we all may have opinions, me not so much because I don't live in the area, but as a board, you certainly have all your own personal opinions, but it's the board's vision. It's the board that needs to come together and say, what do we think? How do we see ourselves in the next 20 years for the sphere of influence, in the next 5, 10, 15, of course, just for direction to your staff and your senior management staff to have that vision from your board so that they can go back to that and reconcile what they're doing on a daily basis to make sure they're going after what the board sees here. Right now,
Also for our constituents.
It's also, it's informed by the constituents and it should be an expression of your constituents for sure. And that's why I wanted to add on the LAFCO process on his website, and Prater, and he notes it in his cover letter, they have a survey form there that they want to hear, not just from each services board, but they love members of our community. So as you talk to members of your community, if they want to give input to this process, they can give it direct to you, but they can also go to the LAFCO website and see an opportunity to give input on the process there.
I think it's a great opportunity for us to do some outreach and, getting back to special meeting. This is something that before the west part of Santa Ynez was annexed, people felt like they had no idea that it was happening until it was a done deal. So I think that's something that we as a board could do because our board has not really delved into how we see the district progressing in the next 5, 10, 20 years.
So what do you need from us tonight, other than let's set up a meeting?
Public comment from Jay.
We have, Mr. Freeman is indicating he'd like to make a public comment and then I can address it. Good. President Jones, Mr. Freeman, public comment, okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
So I think the thing to appreciate about LAFCO is that LAFCO is charged with providing for or kind of guiding the orderly expansion of service areas. And so there's a few things that it's been tasked with, like things it's trying to optimize for. One of which is to make it so that it's cost effective. You don't end up with tiny districts that are weirdly have weird boundaries, ones that could possibly actually have enough money to pay for the service that they're offering, but also to kind of make sure that there isn't overlapping service or weird gaps in service. And then additionally to protect certain cases of protected public resources. And in the process of doing that, we construct these spheres of influence. And so the one clarification that I have is that, at least my understanding, which I'm just another person who may be misunderstanding something, is that at the end of the day, LAFCO decides the sphere of influence, and LAFCO can be hostile. So that's the concern that can sometimes happen, is that you want to kind of like guide the LAFCO process somewhat to make it so that you get what you want out of it. But LAFCO, for example, can decide, yeah, you love being a district, but we sphere of influence deep down to nothing, because we believe that in the next 20 years, your district should be dissolved. Or, 20 years from now, we believe that this district and a nearby district should be merged. And those are decisions that kind of come out of all of the municipal service review work that is done, which this is a part of. And so there's like a level of importance here that actually that kind of ends up mattering of how you end up negotiating the interests you have with LAFCO, that I think is worth considering. Now, thankfully, I don't currently know of any reason why LAFCO would be hostile specifically to your district, but I'm pointing out that it isn't quite that you decide your sphere of influence, kind of explain it to LAFCO. It's LAFCO at the end of the day, here's what your interest is, compares that to a bunch of nearby districts, looks at the effectiveness of how you're providing service and how Solvang and Los Olivos and all these different areas are doing things, and then draws a future boundary for you. And then over time, as different areas attempt to get annexed or obtain service, they compare those spheres of influences to the new annexations, and that can make it either very difficult or very easy for new applications to occur. So that's a piece of background that I wanted to add on how this works. But
Is that helpful? A couple other facts and figures I pulled off.
Okay.
And Mr. Prater is willing to come give a presentation. He actually gave me a copy of his PowerPoint presentation that he'd go over, which is just an introduction to LAFCO and making sure you understand what the commission is, where it comes from, and its membership. And I will, reading off his stuff, 2 county supervisors, currently Hartman and Williams, with alternate Bob Nelson, 2 city council members, Waterfield and Aceves, with alternate Sierra, 2 special district members with Geyer and Freeman, alternate Allen, and 1 member of public at large, and that's a Stark, who's current chair, with an alternate Richardson. So it is, they do, and not all LAFCOs have special district representation on their commission. So I will give Santa Barbara County at least recognition for that I think they do attempt to hear from your districts, your special districts. And there's I can forward this PowerPoint presentation to each of you, or we can have Mr. Prater come at another time to give his overview of the LAFCO process. But really what we need from your board is to know how interested are you. You want to, to me, it's kind of a tough timing thing, because I understand the process at LAFCO is starting. It takes a year, but your board has not sat down and done strategic planning in some time, and you're currently in a situation where you're dealing with an interim general manager who's not in it for the long haul necessarily, but strategic planning is all about the long haul. But we can have some, what's your board's pleasure on this, or maybe council's got some ideas on how we can best move forward, but
I understand your point, and I was just going to say, I understand the point you're making, and ideally we would be able to get this vision together as a board, to work together as a board with whoever our new general manager is. Go ahead, Director Beard.
I do think it's something that we should sit down and do a special meeting with the board, so we can start a strategic plan and work with this and do this together, both of them at the same time. We can answer a lot of the questions, and we can get a strategic plan together.
I agree.
A new whiteboard.
So to me, it sounds like at least 3 of us would like to do that. So setting a date would be the thing. We all have different understandings of LAFCO based on our personal experience. I think everyone here has at least some idea of the role.
Yeah,
Excuse
I
me?
would too. I think that.
I would like to hear from LAFCO. Even have a presentation from LAFCO.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I
maybe we've
think
got
that would be great.
maybe we've got a series of meetings, or maybe, so we could schedule, and I could I'll reach out to Mr. Prater and to your board and coordinate when we can have a meeting where he can come and present. And then maybe following his presentation, we could excuse him and go over those questions, those aspects of this questionnaire that your board's most concerned with. I laid out what I was thinking, but staff really needs to hear from your board. And then, but absent, I just think that, to me, looking at it, that's the focus area where we're talking about spheres of influence and different types of, we could activate latent powers, do more things, that type of stuff. But so then that's, then we just get together and staff could lead a discussion on that, and see if we can get somewhere, at least with answering these questions for the immediate questionnaire, and then maybe laying out some big picture items. Or we could go more formal and try to get there's facilitators that help boards with this type of thing. But that's a more formal process, and I think it takes,
I think at this point, we don't need a facilitator yet.
Okay.
I
See how we do.
We should see how it goes, and see where the board's going, and see if we need one.
Okay.
I'm just not out there to throw the money out.
Yeah.
For a facilitator at this point.
Any thoughts, council?
I agree.
So I guess my comments would be, when these municipal service reviews first came out a number of years ago, it made a lot of special districts uncomfortable and suspicious that LAFCOs were going to use this as a vehicle for doing some major reorganizations of boundaries and service responsibilities and all of that. In my experience in Santa Barbara County, for the most part, the completed municipal service reviews have served as informational documents and sort of to document the status quo. And I haven't seen any real examples of the MSR being a springboard for bringing about big changes, reorganizations, dissolutions, mergers, changes in spheres of influence. I'm not really aware of that happening. But nevertheless, it's an important document, and it does provide an opportunity for the district to give some thought about these big picture issues. And so, as part of that process, I think if you think it would be helpful to have the LAFCO executive officer provide a presentation, that could be helpful. That would be a good thing to do. But then in terms of actually completing the MSR document, the questionnaire, I think you have probably three options. One would be to have the staff put together proposed answers, fill it out, and your board could look at it, and at a board meeting, provide comments, suggested revisions, and that kind of thing. Another approach would be to have a special meeting or a workshop where the board and staff collectively work together on answering some of the questions that involve policy, strategic planning, long-term issues. And a third approach would be to have a facilitated workshop where you would do some strategic planning and develop a new vision for the district, or an updated vision for the district. And then that information would instruct how you complete the MSR. So those would be my comments.
I like the idea of staff, and so much of the answers are just really straightforward and the staff can do it, but bring it back to the board and allow us to weigh in on some of the things that maybe aren't so cut and dry, or things that maybe are, but we have some input that we would want to share.
Okay.
Other directors, do you have a preference?
I feel the same way. I think we're all in agreement.
Okay, I think that's good direction, and I'm also seeing this right up against 7, and I see another face on this, or he's off now, but that is when we expect special counsel to come back in. So
Special meeting for that, to go over it.
Close. Oh yeah, for the LAFCO.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what on the LAFCO, I'll reach out to Mr. Prater, and I'll reach out to your board, but maybe we'll look at 2 weeks hence or something on a Wednesday for a special meeting. Get a presentation from him, get inputs from your board. I think at that time as well, we'll be able to bring the questionnaire all filled out for most of the the cut and dry stuff, I'll call it, the, facts and figures stuff. And then we can work on, some of the other, maybe more difficult questions, and then, that may take another session with us or something, after, beyond just one special meeting, but we'll see where that goes. But we'll start with a presentation from LAFCO. We'll target maybe 2 weeks out, just tentatively, and I'll reach out to each one of you and Director Van Pelt as well to make sure we get that scheduled. And of course, Mr. Pratt. Very good.
Okay, so that agenda item has been satisfied. So we can move on to number G, the review and approval of City of Salt Bank's final invoice. Is that going to be Wendy giving the staff report?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we received the final invoice for the fiscal year 2020, 2021. The finance committee reviewed the invoice. We found a few little things like paying the cell phone for the water supervisor and the Alistown lift station. They did turn around and credit us that amount. And looking to your board to approve the final invoice.
Finance
Okay,
committee,
and did Director Beard or Director D'Ambra have anything to add there?
we're recommending and approve it with those corrections.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion, we approve it with the corrections.
The corrections are included in the email.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Director D'Ambra. and a second
Okay.
by Director Beard to approve the 2020, 2021 fiscal year invoice by the City of Salt Lake for $53,418. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Redford.
Aye.
Director Beard.
Aye.
Director D'Ambra.
Yes,
Director Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and then we have an informational item from our treasurer.
Yeah.
8.
Yes, so this is the financial report from December 31st, 2021. To go over the amounts that we have. And as of December 31st, we had 5,000 in the money market account, 162,698 in the LAIF, 36,546 in 5-star money market account. Sorry, 5-star and Mechanics checking account, because when we were doing the merger for the new software, those two accounts merged into one. We had $36,546. In the 5-star money market account, we had $5,800,547. And in the Horizon Drive 5-star account, we have $210,312. In the 5-star money market, we earned 0.21% in interest, and in the LAIF, we earned 0.23% quarterly. And that leaves us with a total of $5,423,118.
Are there any questions?
I have a question for you, Wendy. It looks like the rates are gonna be going up. I think today they raised it, if I'm not mistaken. The interest that we accrue, is that fixed or will it,
No, it adjusts with.
it's adjustable up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Adjustable up and down.
Down.
And as you can see, it almost went rock bottom.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We will move on to the closed session. Are there any public comments on the agenda items that we will be discussing in the closed session? I don't think there's anyone online. Okay, well, then we can go ahead. It's 7:09.
I don't know, are you gonna speak for okay?
Yeah, that's the ground.
Oh.
You're usually using my internet still for that thing. That's the
Oh,
one thing
okay.
I use. Yeah.
Okay, so
So-
1909, we're going into closed session.